Hi everyone, I want to talk about credit cards today. I've gotten a few comments on my videos asking me about what credit cards I use for my spending, so in this video I'll be talking about that. But I also want to give a general overview about why I like using credit cards and things to consider when using them. It's knowledge that I've picked up over the last 2 years, so I hope you find this interesting and helpful. Finding the best credit card has become sort of a hobby for me, which is not the best use of my time, so I've stopped for a while. But I also think that I've reached a point where I've optimized to the best of my ability what credit cards are most suitable for my lifestyle in order to maximize the rewards that they offer. This sort of enthusiastic research and sharing the fruits of this labor with you is what I aim to do on this channel, so please subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. I have a few other videos on my channel about personal finance in the context of Singapore that might also be interesting to you. As always, everything is linked in the description, including timestamps if you just want to get to the last part of the video where I talk about specific cards that I use, so feel free to skip to the middle section if you're already a seasoned credit card user. Let's begin. So the very basic question, what is a credit card? Or what differentiates a credit card from a debit card? When you use a debit card, the money is directly debited from your bank account. So if I buy a $5 coffee today with a debit card, $5 will be deducted from my bank account within a few days, or if I use nets, then it'll be immediately. On the other hand, if I buy a $5 coffee today with a credit card, I'm not paying for it immediately with my own money. Technically, the bank is paying for my coffee for me first. Then at the end of the month or whenever the billing cycle ends, the bank will total up all my expenses on my credit card and issue me a final bill to pay. So the main difference between debit cards and credit cards is that for credit cards, you're essentially borrowing money from the bank. A few years ago, I didn't really understand why people would choose credit cards over debit cards because I personally found credit cards a bit intimidating. I knew there were annual fees and I heard about the high interest rates if you don't pay your credit card bills on time, and I also knew that many people in the world are in credit card debt. And so I thought, if I have the money to pay for the thing now, why would I do this roundabout thing of using a credit card and paying for the thing later? So it seemed to me like it was far less trouble and risk to just never use a credit card. But of course, there are benefits to using credit cards, which is why it's so popular, and to some people, it might seem like common sense. I'll talk about some of the benefits that have been relevant for me. Firstly, there are some transactions that require and accept only credit cards. Not many and definitely avoidable, but there are some. So I have a story about this. A few years ago, my friends and I went to Malaysia for a trip and we had booked a rental car online a few days before the trip. It was from a big rental car chain, so we knew that they were reputable and everything. Then when we arrived at the airport, we met the representative who was meeting us to hand over the car, and we had to pay a deposit before he could hand over the car to us, which is standard procedure and something that we expected. But what we didn't expect was that it was company policy to only accept credit cards, which obviously none of us had as university students. Then the representative explained that the reason is that credit card transactions could be reversed more easily than debit card transactions. So if you paid the deposit by credit card, it could be reversed in a week or so, but a debit card transaction would take months to reverse. And remember what I said about debit card transactions being your actual money? Yeah, so the car rental company didn't want to deal with client complaints, so they only accepted credit cards. So we were in this situation of being carless at the beginning of our trip, which we had planned entirely around being able to drive to places. Thankfully, the representative had some personal contacts and knew local car rental people, so we managed to get a car that accepted a cash deposit. So yeah, I feel like I should have read the fine print or something before confirming that booking. But also, I was quite naive to think that just because I had Visa or Master on my debit card, it would be accepted everywhere, because that's not always the case. Secondly, credit cards have better fraud protection because it is not using your money yet. So my story about the car rental, remember when the representative told me that their company only accepts credit cards because deposits are more easily refundable? So if they had accepted debit cards, they would have taken $1,000 in deposit from my bank account of my money. Because it's a debit card, right? It's debiting from your bank account. And on top of that, it takes much longer to reverse and refund my deposit. The representative said that it can take up to 3 months. But with a credit card, they can hold $1,000 deposit on the card, which is not directly my money, it's money from the bank, and then they can reverse the charge within a week. I don't actually have to fork out any of my own money, but I can still make the deposit. Okay, that's not the best example of fraud protection, but you see the concept of how your own personal money is protected temporarily because the bank, the credit card, is stepping in on your behalf first. So at least if and when you have to dispute a credit card transaction, most of the time it hasn't been deducted from your bank account yet. This is especially significant if it's a large amount of money. I personally find this quite comforting to know that there is this first line of defense in case my credit card gets stolen or lost, and it's not my own immediate cash that's on the line. Next benefit is a bit of an abstract one and not immediately felt, but it's one of those things where you won't know you need it until you need it, and that is that using a credit card and using it properly can improve your credit score. Think of your credit score as a measure of your reliability with financial institutions. Yes, you can be the most reliable person among your friends, but for big financial institutions, they won't know that, and so they rely on your credit score, which is kind of like your exam score. So every month when you spend on your card and you get a bill at the end of the billing cycle, that's basically a mini loan from the bank that you're taking each month. And so if you repay it in full, on time, every single month, you're signaling to the bank that you're a reliable person to lend money to, and that is how your credit score improves. So later in life, if you ever need to take any loan from the bank, they are more inclined to lend you money and maybe even a larger amount if you have a great credit score. And using credit cards is the easiest way to improve your credit score because you're spending money that you would spend anyway, and it's consistent and frequent enough for you to prove yourself. So if you think of a year as 12 billing cycles, you have 12 chances in a year to show the bank that you are able to reliably pay back all your small loans. Of course, this is provided that you're responsible with it, which means always paying your bills on time. Compared to if you never use a credit card and you always pay just as reliably by debit or cash, that's completely fine, but the bank just has no record of you and your reliability as somebody who borrows money. I'm not sure if I did a very good job explaining this concept, and there is a lot more to it that I can't cover in this video because it'll be far too long, so I'll include a link in the description if you want to read up more on this topic. Truthfully, this hasn't been something that has affected my life because I haven't had to take a personal loan from the bank. The only loans I've taken in my life so far are for my studies, which I think operates on a different system, and my mortgage, which is from HDB. So yeah, I'm not sure when this will become relevant for me, but at least I know that I have a great credit score. Another thing to note is that banks will give you a free credit report when you apply for a credit card, so you can check your credit score each time you apply, whether or not your applications get approved. So if you get rejected, they'll still send you a free report. I've seen my credit score improve from the worst grade to the highest possible grade, so I'm very proud of that. Finally, I think the biggest reason why credit cards are so popular is, of course, the rewards you get, which far exceed what debit cards typically offer. The rewards that credit cards have come in two main forms: cashback or cash rebate, and miles. If it's a miles card, they also sometimes phrase it as points, and you can exchange points for miles and occasionally points to cash, but it's usually not as good of a conversion. Regardless, whether cashback or miles, these are rewards that you earn as you spend on the card. There is another kind of reward that is just as significant, but it's usually a one-time thing, and that is sign-up bonuses for credit cards. So for example, when I signed up for my first credit card with DBS, there was a promotion for first-time sign-ups, and I think it was $200 or $300. There is usually two criteria before you get the bonus for most credit card applications. Firstly, you must be a new card holder, so you've never held a credit card from the bank in the last 12 months. And secondly, you need to spend a minimum amount within a certain time frame. So here's an example with DBS. Right now, you can get $150 cashback if you're not an existing card holder, and you need to spend a minimum of $800 in 2 months. I've seen DBS offer $350 before, so it's a matter of timing also. You might want to time your application to when their sign-up bonus are the highest or the most generous. For DBS, I think $150 is not the highest, so if you can wait a bit, I think it'll be more worth it. Let's look at another example. Let's look at Citibank, the Cashback Plus card. There is the normal reward of 1.6% cashback as you spend on it, but there is also this welcome gift, which is the sign-up bonus. So the sign-up bonus here is not a lump sum, it's a 6% cashback for 2 months. That is actually higher than when I applied for it a few months back. When I applied, it was 4.9%. So yeah, good for you if you apply now. What I just showed you for DBS and Citibank, those are the bank's sign-up bonuses. There is actually a third layer of bonus that I know of, and that is signing up through referral links from sites like SingSaver. These sites usually partner with the banks to give even more sign-up bonuses, and you can choose either cash or a high-value item like a branded suitcase or Nintendo or AirPods, things like that. And I believe that most of these promotions are stackable, so you can get both bank promotions and SingSaver promotions. But of course, it might differ from card to card, so make sure to read whatever description on the page carefully. Like with the bank promotions, there is usually the same criteria of needing to be a new card holder and a minimum spend requirement within a certain time period to be qualified for the bonus. And not all credit cards have promotions on sites like SingSaver, but it's always good to check before you apply so that you can maximize the sign-up bonuses, because once you're a pre-existing card holder with a bank, you're excluded from all their future promotions already. In fact, what I usually do is I check sites like SingSaver for sign-up promotions before deciding what cards I want to apply for next. I'll quickly touch on how to apply for credit cards because it's relevant here. Applying for cards is quite straightforward. You usually just go to the bank's website and click some button on the page, and it'll take you through a series of questions on a form. If you use SingPass, it's even faster because it will autofill most of the fields. After submitting your application, if you're eligible, sometimes it will approve you right away, and sometimes it might take a few days. If you want to apply for a sign-up promotion on SingSaver, you would go through their site and then click on their apply button. By the way, these sites are not signing up with the bank on your behalf. You are still signing up for the card with the bank directly, but you're going through their referral link. And there's always a form you have to fill in somewhere with your application number so that SingSaver can trace back the reward to you. Something to note though is that it usually takes very, very long to get your sign-up bonus through this channel. Bank promotions already take quite long, usually 2 to 3 months, but promotions on these sites tend to take even longer, sometimes 4 to 6 months. That has been my experience at least, but I'm quite chill about it because at the end of the day, even if I didn't get any reward, I didn't lose any money. And I always try to have the mindset of not being possessive over money I never had. But yeah, that is something to keep in mind. By the way, this video is not sponsored, but I do have some affiliate links with SingSaver. So if you apply through my links in the description, I do get a small commission. There is no difference in the sign-up promotions. It's just that you'll be supporting me indirectly if you sign up with my link. Do with the information what you will. One more tip I have before you start applying for cards is to be strategic, not just about timing, but also what card you apply for first. So for example, if there is a Standard Chartered card that you've been eyeing that you think is perfect for you and your lifestyle, and you're not a pre-existing card holder, which means you're eligible for any new sign-up bonuses and promotions. But then you check SingSaver or the bank's website and there isn't a promotion on that particular card. What you can do is try applying for a different card with the bank that has a promotion instead, so that you can maximize the rewards of being a new to bank card holder, and then later on you can apply for the card you originally wanted. Because once you're an existing card holder with the bank, you're not eligible anymore for any of the new sign-up promotions, which would be a waste. So yeah, pro tip, I've actually done this before and I'll talk about it more later when I go through the credit cards I use. Another quick note on how to pay your credit card bills with a different bank account. Usually the bank will send you a notification or an email to notify that your statement is out or you have an outstanding bill. Most of the time, you can pay off your credit cards directly from your iBanking app, even if it's from a different bank. I only have experience paying my credit card bills with my DBS bank account, and it's quite a straightforward process. You just have to find the option on your iBanking app or website, add your credit card number, and transfer the full amount. Just make sure you key in your credit card number and the bill amount correctly. There are a few other things I want to make sure I talk about before I go into what credit cards I use and the criteria I have when choosing credit cards. Firstly, for most credit card applications, there is a minimum annual income of $30,000 for Singaporeans. If you apply by SingPass, the bank can automatically know what your income is by looking at your taxable income and your CPF contributions. I have friends who are freelancers or self-employed and they've had issues with applying for credit cards because of this. So even if you hit the annual income as a self-employed person, the bank might reject your application on the basis of you not having a consistent monthly salary. Some banks might also be more strict with type of employment. This happened to me twice with my applications for a Citibank card and also Standard Chartered, I think. Back when my salary was still $3,000 a month, they rejected my application and said that because I'm on contract, there is a minimum salary of 3.5k to apply for their card. I didn't have the same issue with DBS and Amex, so it really depends from bank to bank. Secondly, there's the matter of the annual fee for a credit card. If you look at most credit card websites, they will have some kind of annual fee, typically about $192.60, which is basically $180 with 7% GST. This used to throw me off and discourage me even further from wanting to get a credit card. But I have learned that most banks will just waive the annual fee if you call customer service and ask them to waive it. I know for DBS you don't even have to call. There's an option on their iBanking website where you can submit a request to waive and it's automatic. In the last 2 years, I've successfully waived the annual fees from my DBS cards and my Amex card without issue. I think most banks will just waive the fee because they want you to keep using their card. I know some banks will offer free points if you pay the fee anyway, so this is all personal preference. But if they're not offering anything, just call them and ask them to waive. I've heard of people threatening to cancel their card if the bank doesn't waive it, and it actually works, but I've personally never had to do that. The third thing you need to consider when using a credit card is to understand just how high the interest rates are if you don't pay your bills in full each time, and how expensive the late charges can be. So just don't mess around with overspending because at the end of the day, it's still a loan from the bank. Set a reminder to pay your bills when they're due, or even better, just set up automatic payments by gyro if you really can't be bothered. Just don't forget to pay it on time. Late charges can be $100 each time, and interest rates can be up to 27%, which is brutal. It's damn crazy. Credit card debt is a super slippery and steep slope. Which leads me to my final point, and that is to use your credit cards responsibly. There are a lot of rewards with credit cards and free money if you think about it that way, but it's only free money if you're using credit cards responsibly, and if the act of using the credit card is not causing you any major inconvenience. Use your credit cards just like you would use debit cards. Keep track of your spending the same way to make sure you're not spending beyond the money you have. And always pay in full at the end of the month. I have a video explaining my system to track this on my channel. I'll link it in the cards here and also in the description below. My general rule of thumb is to never have to wait for next month's salary to pay off a current credit card bill, because that means I'm living beyond my means. So I always make sure that what I pay with my credit card, I'm able to pay it off immediately if I need to. Alright, seriousness aside, let's talk about my personal criteria and preferences for credit cards. When you're coming up with your own list of preferences, it helps to look at your expenses and see not just how much you're spending, but also what you're spending on. Ideally, your credit card should fit your lifestyle and not the other way around. So for myself, we can actually refer to my budget for next month to get a sense of my monthly expenses. If you look at this part of my budget, which is the savings and investments, most of them are normal transfers, so they can't be credit card transactions except for my endowment plan. But on the expenses side, I have many possible expenses that can be put on a credit card. So in this column here, I've labeled each expense by the credit card that I think best suits the transaction to maximize rewards. So broadly, my main expenses can be categorized into insurance, utilities, retail, which refers to things like food, groceries, shopping, and public transport. By the way, this is part of my monthly budget template, which I have a video all about on my channel, and I usually link this template in my video description. I'll link both the video and the template below as well. So as I was saying, something to note is that most credit cards will have transactions that they will typically exclude from being eligible transactions to get cashback or points. This is usually things like insurance payments, utilities, education payments, hospital payments, government payments. Not all, but most. I have some cards that I use specifically for this category, so you can see here, and I'll talk about those later. So after figuring out what main buckets of expenditure I have every month, I also think about my personal preferences for the kind of credit card I want to use. One of my first requirements is that the card's rewards must be consistent and easy to understand. Some cards have pretty complicated criteria to get cashback, and they'll have certain transactions that count under one category, and then there might be a cap on that category, or they only give cashback to certain merchants. So for me, if I have to keep thinking about what transactions count under what category, that's too complicated for me and it makes the card annoying to use. The easier and more straightforward the card is, the better. Next, I always prefer cashback over miles. I like the instant gratification of cashback, and I feel like miles has always been a rich people thing, but that's just my personal bias. Okay, then after you accumulate all your hard-earned rewards, how do you redeem it? I prefer methods of redemption that are relatively easy and straightforward. So with cashback, the best case scenario is automatic deduction from your final bill with no effort on your part. But some cards accumulate cashback or cash rebates, whatever terminology they use, and you can choose to redeem them later. You might also be able to customize how much of your accumulated cash rebates you want to use. So make sure you understand how your specific card will give you your cashback. Just like understanding the rewards, the more complicated it is to redeem the rewards, the less inclined I am to use it in the long run. I'm not too familiar with miles, so my experience is mostly with cashback. But yeah, the fact that I have to convert points to miles and then later on convert miles to a frequent flyer program and then to a plane ticket is why I don't bother with miles. Next is the experience of the bank's app or iBanking site, but mostly phone app since we use that most often. There are some banks whose apps I love to use and I think is so well designed, and others that are just not great. And this is important because most likely you will have to make payments every month on their app, so if it's an irritating process, then you're going to be irritated every month. It's not just the functionality, but also the look and feel of the app and how information is presented on it. Last but not least, I take into account the bank's customer service. This includes my perception of how responsive they are to my calls or my questions. As I've gotten older, customer service has just become so much more important to me, and if I find that a bank's customer service is really lacking, I don't want to use any of their products. There's one card that I've cancelled just because of this. You can usually find reviews of customer service online, so always Google for reviews first. Seriously, when you have a problem with your card, right, you will need to call customer service, so how responsive they are, how helpful they are, all of this will be very important. For example, you might need to call them to waive your annual fee or a late charge, or even to ask about certain transactions. So yeah, I will talk about my experience with various banks' customer service later on also. A common thread across all my criteria would be convenience, which I think is my best parting advice. Already credit cards can be so fraught, but I do believe that their individual benefits far exceed their difficulties if you can use them right. If you have to keep worrying about your cards and whether you're maximizing rewards, I don't think it's worth it because it's mental energy that you can spend on something else. Find your comfort level also and be realistic about what you want and what you're comfortable with. So for example, I know many people use GrabPay, but because I already have so many cards, it stresses me out to think about adding one more method of payment with its own unique rewards and redemption system. That being said, it has become a bit of a game to me in recent years in terms of figuring out what cards to apply for next to get the sign-up bonus and optimizing my credit cards to get the maximum reward. So hopefully all my research over the last 2 years can help you out and save you some time. Finally, the part we've all been waiting for. So even though I'm technically only using 5 cards actively right now, I have 9 cards to talk about because I have used all these cards at some point and I've cancelled quite a few, so I'll just include them in my review anyway. I'll start off with the cards I'm currently using. Sorry for using a screen recording instead of just showing the image of the card, because I'm not sure if I have copyright permission to use the images for some of the cards I'm talking about. But anyway, my daily credit card is the DBS Live Fresh card. I use this card for most of my expenses. My mother also has a supplementary card and we both use it for public transport and household groceries. The cashback on this is about 5%, which is the highest out of all the credit cards that I've seen so far. There is a minimum of $600, but with the combined expenses of myself and my mother, 9 times out of 10, I will always hit the minimum spend. So far, every month, I usually get about $30 to $40 worth of cashback. There is a cap of $75 on their cashback, but I've never gotten more than $40 cashback a month with my spending. The cashback gets credited on the 20th of each month, so depending on when your billing cycle ends, it might offset your current bill or next month's bill. My main bank account is with DBS, so that makes everything very convenient for me. I can check my transactions on the DBS iBanking app, and I can pay my credit card bill directly from the app also. I believe this card has quite a few of the typical exclusions like insurance payments and utilities, which is why I only put retail payments and public transport on this card, and everything else that I think won't qualify as retail, I'll put on another card. I think this is a great everyday card if you spend at least $600 a month on things like food, groceries, public transport, and shopping. The next card is one of my favorite cards, and that's the Amex True Cashback card. I applied for this card shortly before I had to spend a lot of money on appliances for my renovation so that I could maximize the sign-up bonuses and rewards. It's only 1.5% cashback, but there is no minimum spend, no cap on the cashback that you earn, and no categories to track. And your cashback is immediately deducted from the same month's bill. Right now, there is a welcome bonus if you sign up and spend a minimum of $250 on it. I think I got a similar welcome bonus when I signed up, and I also remember that it was quite fast compared to other credit card sign-up bonuses. So I used to put all my utilities on this card, like my SP utility bill, my phone bill, my Wi-Fi bill. The only reason why my utilities are not on this card currently is because I'm trying out other cards, but I will always go back to the Amex card by default. Also, their customer service is so good. I remember I called them a couple months ago to request to waive my annual fee, and the customer service person was a bit too polite and cheery. So yeah, great customer service, and the app is also so simple and straightforward to use. The major con to this card would be that Amex is less common than Visa and Master in Singapore, so some stores cannot accept Amex cards. And also, while technically you can earn cashback on insurance payments, right? Most insurance companies don't accept Amex cards. For example, I use Prudential and their online payment system only accepts Visa and Master. Next is a card that is very similar to Amex True Cashback, and that is the Citi Cashback Plus. It's similar in that there is 1.6% cashback on all spend, which is 0.1% more, no categories, no minimum spend, and no cap on cashback. The similarities end there because even though they say all spend, I believe they still have the typical exclusions like insurance payments and some utilities. The app is fine, it looks pretty good actually, but the redemption of the cashback is very annoying and unintuitive, almost like they don't want you to redeem your cashback. When you have to Google and read on multiple websites to figure out how to redeem your cashback, that's just not a good impression. You have to send a text to some number, and you can only redeem your cashback in multiples of $10. So if you have $9.50, too bad for you because you cannot redeem it until you hit at least $10. So you need to text this number to convert your cashback into cash rebates that will offset your next month's bill. Now that I've done this process a couple times, I'm used to it, but I remember being quite annoyed at the beginning when I was trying to figure it out. But the reason why I applied for this card was because I wanted to get the sign-up bonuses, and I also had my LASIK surgery coming up, so I had actually been eyeing this card for a few months, but I wanted to wait until I had a big expense coming up so that I could maximize all the sign-up rewards. Even though I knew the card had some of the typical exclusions, I didn't see anything about optometrists or hospital bills, and I did manage to get cashback on my LASIK surgery, which was about $60 worth of cashback, and that's just for the base 1.6% cashback rate. I should be getting my bonus cashback as part of the sign-up reward in a few weeks. So yeah, that is how I strategically apply for cards. Don't need to rush and apply for all the cards all at once, because that's actually not very good for your credit score also. If you're just applying for cards to get the sign-up rewards, then you should time your applications based on any planned expenditure, especially for these no cap on cashback kinds of credit cards. That's just my advice, but do whatever you want. The next card that gets a lot of use is my Maybank Platinum Visa. It's not a very flashy card. In fact, I think it's quite underrated, but it does the one thing I need it to do very well, and that is, this card allows me to get cashback for my insurance premiums. If you spend a minimum of $300 every month, you can get $30 cashback every quarter, which is about $10 a month. If you spend $1,000 on it every month, you can get $100 in cashback every quarter, which is about $33 a month. But for both tiers within that quarter, which is 3 months, you need to hit the minimum spend every single month, which is great for my insurance payments because it's consistent every month. So if you consistently pay over $300 a month on insurance premiums, I would highly recommend this card, and it uses Visa, which is supported by most insurance payment systems. I don't think I would recommend it for any other spending because Maybank cards are not supported on Apple Pay, which would be very inconvenient for many people. For their sign-up bonus, I got $100, which was very nice, and it was automatically deducted from my final credit card bill. What I don't like is that Maybank keeps sending me letters in the mail advertising their loan services, which I don't really appreciate. And also, their app looks a bit dated. It's functional and decently intuitive, but it looks like a very old-fashioned app in terms of design. The next card that I use quite frequently is the Standard Chartered Spree card. Standard Chartered doesn't advertise this card much, but I think most of my peers would like this card actually. It's got 2% cashback on most spending and 3% cashback on foreign currency spending, which would be good if you shop a lot on international websites. There is $30 cap on the monthly cashback that you can earn on this card, but there is no minimum spend. 2% is by far the highest out of all the no minimum spend cashback cards, which is why I would recommend this card to most people. In fact, I use this card for my joint spending with my partner, so at the end of the month, we just split the bill evenly, which saves us from having to keep track of who paid for what. Based on the terms and conditions, I think utilities are not excluded from cashback, but I've personally never tried it because I use this card exclusively for joint spending and it'll be troublesome to put my personal expenses on it. Let me know if you use this card and if you get cashback from utilities, because if it does work, it's a pretty good card for that purpose with the 2% cashback. My only complaint would be that the mobile iBanking app is not very pleasant to use. I find it very cluttered and unintuitive. So yeah, in terms of their app, I think it needs a lot of improvement. Alright, those are all the cards I'm actively using on a month-to-month basis. The next 4 cards on the list are cards that I still have but don't use, or have had but I've cancelled them already. The Standard Chartered Smart Card is a great example of a card that I applied for just to get the sign-up bonus, because my eyes were on another Standard Chartered card, which is the Spree card I was talking about earlier. It's just not a card that ticks any of the boxes in terms of my preferences. I find the rewards very confusing, and it's based on a point system, which again is confusing and also annoying to redeem. And as I mentioned before, I don't like the Standard Chartered iBanking app. So once I get my sign-up bonus, I'm going to cancel this card. Okay, next is the DBS Altitude Visa. This is a miles-based credit card, so you earn DBS points which you can convert to miles eventually, and the points don't expire. This was actually the first joint card I had with my partner because we thought it was quite exciting to accumulate miles for a potential future trip together. But the reality of this card was that we weren't accumulating points fast enough, and so it was not a gratifying card to use really, which was why we switched over a couple times before we settled on the Standard Chartered Spree one. The only reason why I haven't cancelled this card is because we have some points on it. We have about 2,000 points, which if we were to just convert into cashback would be $20, which seems like such a bad deal. So hopefully we can convert it to miles eventually, but I have to figure out how to do that. Other than that, it's part of the DBS ecosystem, which makes it very convenient to view your transactions and make payment. Next is also another card within the DBS POSB ecosystem, which is the POSB Everyday card. I used to like this card, and I even got my mother a supplementary card, mainly because there was a special cash rebate for Sheng Siong, and before we moved, there was a Sheng Siong nearby that we mostly went to for groceries. Now at our new place, we don't go to Sheng Siong anymore because it's quite far away, and the other perks of this card are just not worth it. My biggest complaint with this card is that it's so confusing because the promotions keep changing with different terms and conditions, and sometimes there is a minimum spend and sometimes there isn't. I used to use it for utilities, but even then, the cash rebate on that kept changing. At one point, there was a cap of $1 on cash rebate earned from utilities, which wasn't there before. My partner and I switched to this card after giving up on DBS Altitude because we thought there was a better deal on the dining category, which was most of our joint spending anyway. But we realized that the higher tier of reward for cash rebate on dining had an $800 minimum spend criteria. I'm not so free to keep checking what the rewards are at any particular time, and I was so annoyed that I just ended up cancelling the card. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this card because I cannot even tell you with any confidence what the rewards are because who knows, they might change the rewards tomorrow. It's too confusing. Bye. Last on this list is the OCBC Frank credit card, which is a direct competitor to the DBS Live Fresh card, offering 1% more cashback. If you look at the rewards offered on their website, it's very similar to the DBS Live Fresh, so I won't go into too much detail. Objectively, they are offering just a slightly more competitive rate at 6%, but honestly, 1% will not make a significant difference, especially if the process and experience of using the card involves extra inconvenience. So I mainly use DBS as my main bank account, right? And so it's very convenient for me to have my main credit card, which is my DBS Live Fresh, on the same iBanking app. Everything is within one bank's ecosystem, which is very convenient for payments and checking transactions. My mother also has a supplementary card, which I can check and pay for on the same app. So to switch over to OCBC Frank just for the extra 1% cashback, it's not worth the effort for me. And truthfully, I just decided to cancel the card in the end when my friend who was using the card complained to me about bad customer service, and I heard the same from other reviews online as well. So I'd rather cancel the card and not have to think about it rather than to keep it around. Then in 12 months, when I'm considered a new card holder, if a really great sign-up promotion for an OCBC card comes up, I can apply for that. Before I round this video up, I'll briefly mention a couple other tools I use in conjunction with credit cards to maximize the rewards I get as I'm spending. The first would be the Shopback app, which works as its own rewards app that you can link up to any card, not just credit cards but debit cards as well. The rewards depend from merchant to merchant, but the good thing about this app is that you can set it and forget it, and you can use your card as per normal. It's very convenient and I've earned quite a bit of cashback from it since I've used it. The second would be my money tracking app, which has been crucial in helping me keep track of my expenses on my cards and making sure I don't spend beyond my means. I have an entire video about the app that I use on my channel, so I won't go into detail about it, but the point is, having a money tracking app is very useful, especially if you're paying by credit card, where the possibility of overspending is that much higher. We've reached the end of this very long and hopefully comprehensive video. It seems like I can never make a short video, and yet I still feel like I have so much more to say. If you've watched this far and you think that there is still so much more about credit cards that you'd like to know, I highly recommend this short Netflix documentary episode, specifically on credit cards, from the documentary Money Explained. It's only 30 minutes and it goes into the business side of credit cards and how banks profit off of it. And really how they profit off of it is by preying on vulnerable people who really shouldn't be using credit cards at all. So the episode discusses some ethical considerations which I have not covered in this video, so I would highly recommend watching that one episode on Netflix. I guess I wanted to offer some balance to this video, which is why I'm bringing this up, because everything comes at a price. And with that, I'd like to thank you so much for watching and for your support. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and I'll see you in my next video.